In my humble opinion, Cartomancer is a ridiculous feat. I personally thought this was just a feat that gives some flavor and utility. However, when you dig deeper into the feat itself, it has such an absurd ability to be one of the most broken feats in the game. The feat itself reads, when you finish a long rest, you can choose one spell from your class's spell list and imbue that spell into a card. The chosen spell must have a casting time of 1 action and it must be of a level for which you have spell slots. The card remains imbued with the spell for 8 hours. While the card is imbued with the spell, you can use a bonus action to flourish the card and cast the spell within. The card then immediately loses its magic. And of course, too, it also gives you the ability to cast Prestidigitation, but that's really not what we're here for. And specifically the line, you can choose one spell from your class's spell list and imbue that spell into a card, is what really breaks the feat. Because technically, with this line of logic, we could take a level in every class, and then once a day, we could cast just about any spell from any of those lists, assuming that it's a spell of a level we can normally cast, of course. So knowing this, what we end up doing is obvious. We need to make a build that allows us to cast as many spells in the game as possible. Because at this point, why not? So starting off with this build, we'll want to take Wizard. Personally, I think the Order of Scribes Wizard or Illusionist Wizard are the best fit here. Order of Scribes fits thematically with the high adaptability that comes with this build, but Illusionist is also a great choice because this can get us access to all the spells in the game with a consume gold cost, which we can then bypass thanks to our Illusory Reality capstone by making all the items we need to be consumed out of illusions. Sorry if that was kind of rambly, but trust me, we've done that combo a lot before on the channel. I'm probably going to be covering it more on the channel at some other point with some other build, so just keep that in mind. But besides that, there are actually a few other honorable mentions. For example, imagine getting access to every single conjuration spell in the game as a conjuration wizard. You can now summon all manners of creatures and even use planar binding to just keep them around. And then on top of that, they also come in with a ton of extra temporary hit points. And for your race with this build, I'd personally recommend getting a Dragon Mark race from Eberron with the spells that you'd only likely find on the Bard, Warlock, or Ranger list. And yes, that is a hint to what we'll be doing later in the build. But if the Dragon Mark races aren't your speed, take Variant Human or Custom Lineage, and with our feat of choice, we'll obviously want to take Cartomancer as our free feat. And for our background, the Rewarded has some very nice options. Being able to get the Magic Initiate feat also gives us some additional spellcasting options from other classes, or even take the Strixhaven backgrounds. You'll get access to the Strixhaven Initiate feat and a specific Strixhaven School's spellcasting list. And as I mentioned, trying to find options you'll only get from the Warlock, Ranger, and Bard spell classes. But anyways, after you've gone deep enough into Wizard, and you've ideally picked up Cartomancer from your feat of choice or just from one of your level ups, and you already have an intelligence of 20, because yes, intelligence is actually going to be a major factor because wizards get 300 plus spells, in fact, and if we're going to be casting them with our wizard spell slots, it's only fitting that that's the stat we end up maximizing. But anyways, after we go deep enough into Wizard, we'll want to switch it up. We'll want to take exactly 1 level in Cleric, 1 level in Druid, and 1 level in Paladin. And then continue on with the rest of Wizard. And yeah, I know that this is a really weird combo, but hear me out. Using this combo, while yes, we do slow down only slightly with the level progression, we can now cast any 1-action spell from the Cleric, Druid, Paladin, and Wizard spell list. When we get up to our 17th level of Wizard and our 20th level overall, that gives us access to about 400 spells that we could cast once a day. And now I'm not saying we can cast 400 different spells once a day each. I'm saying once a day we can pick from like 400 spells and cast one of them once a day. And mind you, there are a little over 500 spells in the game. So the fact that our character would then have access to about 1/5 of them is pretty close. And this isn't even accounting for the spells we could get from our background and race options too. And yes, you can only take 1 spell a day, but trust me, there's so much you can do with this spell. You're basically the Batman of whatever game you're put in because if you get enough prep time, you can do anything. A majority of the crazier builds on this channel involve spells across the different classes. And granted, sometimes having specific subclasses does change how those spells interact with the game, but still, this feature opens up lots of crazy combos within the game. And while I made this entire build to revolve around Milk and Cartomancer, I do want to highlight some of the builds that I do think would be awesome with this feat. For example, multiclassers that are having very light dips into their spellcasting can take Cartomancer to give a lot of in and out of combat utility to their characters. Imagine an Eldritch Knight or Arcane Trickster that takes one level of Wizard and then the Cartomancer feat. What this can do for you is give you some great once-a-day spell casting, and even too, you have access to cast any spell from your wizard list with your character, assuming you have the levels to cast it, of course. And honestly, this is really good for these sorts of classes and subclasses, because you're not going to be getting a lot of spells anyways. You really don't have a lot of spells you can learn. You're really not going to be having a lot of spells slots you can cast per day. So the fact that A, you can cast more spells is going to be great for you, and B, and this can be great for giving your character spell options they likely wouldn't have access to, while also not missing out on high-level spellcasting options. In fact, this little combo actually gives the Arcane Trickster and Eldritch Knight more 4th level spells too, so that's fun to note. And granted, it's not as impactful as having another 9th level spell at your disposal, but for the resources you have, it is very handy. But anyways though, that is all the time I have today for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, then please like and subscribe for even more D&D content and ideas. And also, let me know in the comments how you guys are going to be using the Cartomancer feat, and even too, what fun ways you've already seen it used. And in the meantime, keep smiling, keep scheming, and I'll see all of you next time.